The scent of orange blossoms and expensive perfume hung thick in the church air, making my stomach turn. I stood in the bridal suite, my hands trembling as Maria, my mother's oldest friend, adjusted the veil that had been in our family for 3 generations. The Venetian lace felt like a shroud against my skin. "Bellissima," Maria whispered, her weathered hands gentle on my shoulders. "Giovanni Caccini is a lucky man." Lucky. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I was 22 years old, standing in a wedding dress worth more than most people's houses, about to marry a man who terrified me as much as he fascinated me. Giovanni Caccini, 37 years old, head of the Chicago branch of the Cosa Nostra, a man whose very name made grown men pale. And he was about to become my husband. Through the closed door, I could hear the murmur of voices from the cathedral. Every important family in the organization was here. The Morettis from New York, the Russos from Boston, the Salvatores from Detroit. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a political statement, a consolidation of power, a promise of alliance between the Benedetto and Caccini families. I was the promise, the offering, the pretty prize wrapped in white silk and family duty. My reflection stared back at me from the full-length mirror. The dress was exquisite, custom-made in Milan with a fitted bodice that emphasized curves I'd been taught to hide, and a flowing skirt that made me look like something out of a fairy tale. My dark hair was swept up in an elaborate style, the veil cascading down my back like a waterfall of lace. Diamond earrings, a gift from Giovanni, glittered at my ears. I looked like a bride. I felt like a sacrifice. The door opened and my father entered, resplendent in his tuxedo. Dante Benedetto was a handsome man, even at 55, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. But it was the expression on his face that made my blood run cold. Something was wrong. "Papa?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. He closed the door behind him with deliberate care, and the click of the latch sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. Maria took one look at his face and quickly excused herself, leaving us alone. "Chiara." My father's voice was strained. "Sit down." "I don't want to sit down." Fear crystallized in my chest. "What's happened? Is Giovanni—" "Giovanni is fine." The words were clipped. Physically, at least. I pressed a hand to my stomach, where butterflies had been dancing all morning. "Then what?" "He's called it off." The world tilted. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. "What?" "The wedding." My father's jaw was tight with barely controlled rage. "Giovanni Caccini has decided he doesn't want to marry you." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. But everyone's here. The cathedral is full. The reception is... I know where everyone is, Chiara. My father's voice cracked like a whip. Giovanni made his announcement 10 minutes ago, in front of everyone. He stood at the altar and told the priest, told the families, told God himself that he would not be taking you as his wife. Humiliation crashed over me in waves. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what I was hearing. Why? The question emerged as barely a whisper. He didn't offer an explanation. My father moved to the window, his back rigid. He simply said he'd made a mistake, that the marriage wouldn't proceed, that he wouldn't be bound to a woman he doesn't want. Doesn't want. The words burrowed into my chest like bullets. I had spent months preparing for this wedding, months accepting my fate, making peace with marrying a man 15 years my senior, a man whose reputation was built on violence and fear. I had convinced myself that I could make it work, that I could be the wife he needed, that maybe, eventually, we could build something real. And he didn't want me. "The families are in chaos," my father continued, his voice hard. The Morettis are demanding explanations. The Russos are questioning Giovanni's stability. The Salvatoris are already discussing what this means for existing alliances. He turned to face me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my father's eyes. Pity. You understand what this means for you, don't you? I understood perfectly. In our world, a woman rejected at the altar was tainted goods. It didn't matter that I'd done nothing wrong. The speculation would be vicious. Did she displease him somehow? Is there something wrong with her? Maybe she isn't pure? The whispers would follow me everywhere, destroying any chance I had of a respectable marriage. I was ruined. I want to see him. The words surprised me as much as they surprised my father. Chiara, I want to see Giovanni. My voice was stronger now, fueled by a rage I didn't know I possessed. If he's going to destroy my life, he can at least tell me why to my face. My father studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharply. He's in the sacristy. But Chiara, be careful. Giovanni Caccini is not a man who tolerates confrontation, especially not from women. I didn't care about toleration. I didn't care about protocol or respect or any of the rules I'd been taught since birth. Giovanni Caccini had just humiliated me in front of every important person in our world. The least he could do was look me in the eye while I fell apart. I gathered my skirts and swept past my father, ignoring his warnings. The hallway outside the bridal suite was empty, but I could hear the chaos from the cathedral. Raised voices, angry conversations, the sound of families fragmenting over broken promises. The sacristy was at the opposite end of the church. I walked through empty corridors, my heels clicking against marble floors, the train of my dress whispering behind me like ghostly witnesses. My heart pounded against my ribs, fear and fury warring for dominance. I didn't knock. I simply opened the door and walked in. Giovanni stood by the window, his back to me, one hand braced against the frame. He wore his tuxedo like armor, every line perfect, every detail precise. His dark hair was swept back from his face, and even from behind he radiated power and control. He didn't turn around when I entered, didn't acknowledge my presence, simply stood there, immovable as stone. Look at me. My voice echoed in the small room. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't obey. Then, slowly, he turned. The first time I'd met Giovanni Caccini, I'd been 17 years old. He'd come to my father's house for a business meeting, and I'd been instructed to serve coffee. I'd been terrified of him then. This tall, imposing man with eyes like winter storms, and a presence that seemed to consume all the air in any room he entered. But I'd also been fascinated. There was something magnetic about his intensity, something compelling about the way he moved through the world with absolute certainty. 5 years later, that fascination had turned into something more complicated, something I'd convinced myself could be the foundation of a marriage. Now, looking at him, I felt only betrayal. Chiara. My name on his lips was flat, emotionless. You owe me an explanation. I moved further into the room, my dress rustling. You stand me up at the altar, humiliate me in front of everyone, destroy my reputation, and you won't even tell me why. His jaw tightened. That was the only indication he'd heard me. This isn't personal. Not personal? My laugh was sharp, bitter. How is this not personal, Giovanni? You agreed to marry me. Our families arranged this union. I prepared for months to be your wife. And now, minutes before we're supposed to exchange vows, you decide you don't want me? How is that anything but personal? You wouldn't understand. Then make me understand. My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me why I'm not good enough. Tell me something, anything, that makes sense of this. He moved toward me then, and I instinctively took a step back. Giovanni noticed. and something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or regret. But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. You didn't do anything wrong, Kiara. His voice was low, controlled. This is about me, about what I can and cannot accept in my life. And you can't accept me. I can't accept what you represent. The words hit like a slap. What I represent. I'm not a symbol, Giovanni. I'm a person. A woman who was willing to bind her life to yours, who was prepared to stand beside you through everything, who... My voice broke. I hated that it broke. Hated showing weakness in front of this man who seemed carved from ice. Exactly. He cut me off, his tone sharp. You were prepared to stand beside me, to be loyal, devoted, committed. Do you have any idea what that kind of devotion means in my world, Kiara? It means I would have been a good wife. It means you would have become a weakness. The words were cold, final. In my position, I cannot afford weaknesses. I cannot afford to care about anyone or anything beyond the organization. The moment I let myself... He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. This is better for both of us. Trust me. Trust you? Disbelief colored my voice. You're destroying my life and you want me to trust you? Your life isn't destroyed. You're young, beautiful, from a good family. You'll find another match. The casual dismissal ignited something inside me. I crossed the space between us before I could think better of it, standing close enough to see the gold flecks in his storm-gray eyes, close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive and distinctly him. You coward, I said softly. You're afraid. His eyes darkened dangerously. Watch your tongue, Kiara. Why? What are you going to do? Humiliate me further? Destroy what's left of my reputation? I tilted my head back to meet his gaze. You're the head of the most powerful crime family in Chicago. Men fear you. Rival organizations avoid direct conflict with you. But you're terrified of one thing, feeling something real for someone. You know nothing about me. I know you're running. From me. From this marriage. From the possibility that you might actually have to care about someone other than yourself. His hand shot out, gripping my arm. Not painfully, but firmly enough that I couldn't pull away. Don't presume to understand my choices. Then explain them. I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. Make me understand why you'd rather destroy both our futures than take a chance on... I stopped myself before saying too much. On what? His voice was dangerous now, quiet in a way that made my pulse race. On love? On building something real? Is that what you think this marriage was supposed to be, Kiara? Some fairy tale where the princess tames the beast? I never thought you were a beast, Giovanni. I thought you were a man. A complicated, dangerous man. Yes, but still a man capable of being a husband. I paused. I was wrong, wasn't I? You're not a man. You're exactly what everyone says you are. A monster who cares about nothing but power. The words hung between us, sharp and cutting. For a moment, I saw something break in his expression. Something vulnerable and raw. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask he wore so well. He released my arm and stepped back. Get out, Kiara. Gladly. I gathered my skirts, preparing to leave with what little dignity I had remaining. But at the door, I paused and looked back at him. You're right about one thing, Giovanni. You can't afford weaknesses, and God help you when you finally realize that by pushing away anyone who could love you, you've made yourself the weakest man in this city. I left before he could respond. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall until I was alone. Behind me, I heard the crash of something shattering against a wall. Good. Let him destroy things. Let him rage. It changed nothing. Giovanni Caccini had rejected me, and now I would have to live with the consequences. 3 months passed like a slow death. I became invisible in my own home, a ghost drifting through rooms that suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. My mother stopped meeting my eyes at breakfast. My younger sister whispered with her friends and fell silent when I entered a room. Even the household staff treated me differently, with pity poorly disguised as respect. The rejection had done exactly what Giovanni must have known it would do, destroyed my standing in our world. Marriage proposals dried up completely. Men who might have been interested before now avoided me at family gatherings. I was damaged goods, tainted by a rejection I couldn't explain and a humiliation I couldn't escape. My father, to his credit, tried to maintain normalcy. But I saw how the other families treated him now. The whispers about his daughter, the speculation about what I must have done to disgust Giovanni Caccini so thoroughly. Dante Benedetto's reputation suffered because of me, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I spent my days reading in the library, going for supervised walks in our gardens, existing but not living. At night, I lay awake wondering what was wrong with me, what Giovanni had seen that made him run, what deficiency I possessed that made me unworthy of being his wife. The anger had faded, replaced by something worse: resignation. This was my life now, a cautionary tale. The girl who almost married Giovanni Caccini and wasn't enough to keep him. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed again. I was in the library, curled up in my favorite chair with a book I wasn't really reading, when my father burst through the door. His face was pale, his movements jerky with barely controlled panic. "Pack a bag," he ordered without preamble. "Enough for a week. Do it now." I set down my book, alarm spiking through me. "Papa, what's happened?" "Just do as I say, Chiara. Quickly." I'd been raised to obey my father without question, so I went to my room and pulled out a leather weekender bag. My hands shook as I packed clothes, toiletries, essentials. Through my window, I could see unusual activity in our courtyard. More security than normal. Men with guns positioned at strategic points. Maria knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Her face was drawn with worry as she helped me pack more efficiently than my panicked fumbling allowed. "What's going on?" I asked her quietly. "There's been a betrayal," she whispered, glancing at the door. "Someone close to your father has been feeding information to the Vitale family. They're planning something big, and the Benedettos are no longer safe in Chicago. The Vitales, a rival organization based in Philadelphia, known for their brutality and their long-standing grudge against the Chicago families. If they were moving against my father, it meant war. Where are we going?" "You're going somewhere safe." Maria's hand stilled on the clothing she was folding. "Your father is sending you to the one man powerful enough to protect you from the Vitales." Ice spread through my veins. "No." "Giovanni Caccini has offered his protection." "No." I backed away from the bag. "I won't go to him. I won't give him that satisfaction." "Chiara, this isn't about satisfaction or pride." Maria gripped my shoulders. "The Vitales are ruthless. If they get their hands on you, they'll use you against your father in ways you can't even imagine. Giovanni's compound is fortified. His men are loyal. You'll be safe there." "I'd rather die than beg Giovanni Caccini for protection." "It's not begging, Chiara. It's survival." She cupped my face gently. "And you're not going alone. Your father has negotiated terms. Giovanni will provide protection, but there's a price." Of course there was a price. Men like Giovanni Caccini never did anything out of the goodness of their hearts. "What price?" "The marriage he rejected 3 months ago." Maria's voice was soft but firm. "He'll agree to marry you properly this time, giving you his name and his full protection. In exchange, your father will support Giovanni's expansion into new territories and provide intelligence on the Vitale's operations." A bitter laugh escaped me. "So I get to marry the man who humiliated me, And this time it's because he needs something from my father. How romantic. Chiara, don't. I pulled away from her touch. Don't tell me this is for the best, or that everything happens for a reason. Giovanni made his choice 3 months ago. He doesn't want me, remember? He said I was a weakness he couldn't afford. Whatever his reasons were then, he's willing to overlook them now. Maria's expression was troubled. Your father believes Giovanni will honor the marriage this time. The threat to you is real, Chiara. If the Vitalis get you... I know. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. I know what they'll do. I've heard the stories. The Vitalis didn't just kill their enemies. They destroyed them slowly, methodically, using every psychological and physical torture available. Women in particular were subjected to horrors designed to break both them and their families. My father was right to be terrified. I was right to be terrified. But going to Giovanni felt like jumping from one prison into another. How long do I have? I asked finally, opening my eyes. Your father wants you gone within the hour. Giovanni is sending a security team to escort you to his compound. Of course he is. I returned to the bag, mechanically adding more items. Can't trust the Benedettos to transport their own daughter safely. It's not about trust. It's about firepower. Maria helped me zip the bag. Giovanni's men are better trained, better armed. They'll get you there alive, which is all that matters right now. The drive to Giovanni's compound took 45 minutes through Chicago's outskirts into an area I'd never been. The security team was exactly as Maria described, professional, heavily armed, and completely silent. I sat in the back of an armored SUV, watching the city give way to suburbs, and then to the isolated estate where Giovanni Caccini conducted his business and his life. The compound was impressive in a terrifying way. High walls topped with security cameras and what looked like razor wire. A gate that required multiple checkpoints. Guards positioned at regular intervals, all carrying automatic weapons with casual familiarity. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. We passed through 3 separate security points before the SUV finally stopped in front of a massive stone mansion. Italian Renaissance style. All elegant lines and understated luxury. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a mausoleum. One of the guards opened my door. Mr. Caccini is waiting inside, Signorina. Of course he was. Giovanni probably enjoyed watching me arrive like a prisoner being delivered to her cell. I stepped out of the vehicle, my chin high despite the fear churning in my stomach. The afternoon sun was warm, but I felt cold. A woman appeared in the doorway of the mansion. Older, perhaps 60, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Miss Benedetto, she greeted me with a slight Italian accent. I'm Rosa, Mr. Caccini's housekeeper. Welcome. Welcome, as though I was a guest rather than a refugee. I followed her inside, my heels clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than a year of most people's salaries. The interior was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive, tasteful, and utterly lacking in warmth. Dark wood, neutral colors, artwork that looked original rather than reproduced. A home designed to impress rather than to comfort. Mr. Caccini asked me to show you to your rooms, Rosa continued, leading me up a sweeping staircase. He thought you might want to rest and refresh yourself before speaking with him. How considerate. Giovanni was probably hoping I'd regain some composure before whatever confrontation was coming. I followed Rosa down a long hallway to a suite of rooms that made my bedroom at home look like a closet. A sitting area, a bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, a bathroom with both a shower and a soaking tub, and a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in my size. Mr. Caccini had these items purchased for you, Rosa explained, noticing my gaze. If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste, just let me know. We can have alterations made or new items brought in. I ran my fingers over a silk blouse, anger simmering beneath my carefully controlled exterior. Giovanni had prepared for my arrival, had purchased an entire wardrobe, had set up these rooms like a gilded cage designed specifically for me. "When does he want to see me?" I asked, my voice flat. "Whenever you're ready, signorina. There's no rush." There was always a rush with men like Giovanni. Every moment was calculated, every action purposeful. If he was giving me time, it was because he wanted me off balance, uncertain, vulnerable. "Tell Mr. Caccini I'll see him now." I met Rosa's eyes. "I don't need to rest or refresh myself. Let's get this over with." Rosa hesitated, then nodded. "Follow me, please." She led me back downstairs to a different wing of the mansion. We stopped outside a heavy wooden door, and Rosa knocked once before opening it. "Miss Benedetto, sir." "Thank you, Rosa." Giovanni's voice came from inside, that same controlled baritone that had haunted my dreams for months. I stepped into what was clearly his office, all dark wood and leather furniture, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and windows overlooking the grounds. Giovanni stood behind a massive desk, his hands braced on the surface, his eyes fixed on me with that same intense focus I remembered from our last encounter. He looked different. Older, maybe. More tired. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before, and his jaw was tight with tension. "Chiara." My name again, but this time there was something in his voice I couldn't quite identify. "Giovanni." I remained by the door, maintaining distance. "I understand I'm to be your prisoner for the foreseeable future." "You're not a prisoner." He straightened, coming around the desk. "You're under my protection." "Is there a difference?" "Yes." He stopped a few feet away, hands sliding into his pockets. The gesture should have made him look casual. Instead, it emphasized the coiled tension in his frame. A prisoner is here against their will. You're here because the alternative is being tortured and killed by the Vitales. So my choice is marry you or die. I kept my voice steady. "Very romantic, Giovanni. You really know how to sweep a woman off her feet." His jaw tightened. "Your father and I have an arrangement." "I know what the arrangement is." I cut him off. "I'm not stupid. You need my father's support for your expansion plans, and he needs your protection for his daughter. It's a business deal. Just like the first wedding attempt, except this time you're actually going through with it, because the benefits outweigh your fear." Something flashed in his eyes. Fear? That's what it was, wasn't it? I took a step closer, anger giving me courage. 3 months ago, you rejected me because you were afraid. Afraid of what I represented. Afraid of caring about someone. Afraid of being vulnerable. And now circumstances have forced your hand. So you're accepting what you ran from before. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Another step. We were close enough now that I could see the muscle ticking in his jaw, could smell that familiar cologne. "Tell me, Giovanni, what changed? Did you suddenly realize I'm not a weakness after all? Or did you just decide that the strategic advantages of this marriage outweigh your precious emotional walls?" He moved so fast I didn't have time to react. One moment he was standing still. The next his hand was wrapped around my wrist, pulling me close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "You want to know what changed?" His voice was dangerously soft. "I'll tell you. 3 months ago, I convinced myself that staying away from you was noble, that I was protecting you from the darkness of my world, from becoming a target because of your association with me. I told myself you'd be better off with someone else, someone less dangerous, someone who could give you a normal life." His grip tightened fractionally. "And then I watched you suffer for my decision. I watched your family's reputation crumble because of my rejection. I watched you become a ghost, barely existing, destroyed by humiliation I inflicted. I watched you turn invisible in your own home, and I realized my nobility was just cowardice dressed up in self-righteous justification. I tried to pull away, but he held firm. Let go of me. Not until you hear this. His other hand came up, fingers curling around the back of my neck, in a gesture that was both possessive and gentle. The Vitales targeting your family was the excuse I needed, a way to protect you that looked like strategy rather than emotion. Your father's support helps me, yes, but I would have offered protection regardless. I would have married you regardless. Because 3 months of living with what I did to you was hell, Kiara, and I won't waste another day pretending I don't want you as my wife. My breath caught. This was different from 3 months ago. This wasn't rejection disguised as protection. This was possession, raw and unfiltered. You don't get to do this, I whispered. You don't get to break me, and then decide you want me after all. That's not how this works. I know. His thumb traced along my jaw. I know I destroyed your trust. I know I humiliated you in the worst possible way. I know I have no right to ask for a second chance, but I'm asking anyway, because the alternative, letting you go, watching someone else claim you, is worse than any punishment I can imagine. What about what I want? My voice shook despite my efforts to control it. What if I don't want to marry you? What if I'd rather take my chances with the Vitales than bind myself to a man who made me feel worthless? Something broke in his expression. Then I'll protect you anyway. I'll keep you safe. Ensure your father's position is secure, and let you go when the threat passes. But Kiara... His voice dropped even lower. Don't ask me to watch you marry someone else. Don't ask me to stand aside while another man gets what I threw away. I'm not that strong. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. I wanted to hold on to my anger, my hurt, my righteous fury at being rejected and humiliated. But looking into Giovanni's storm-gray eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Real, unguarded vulnerability from a man who showed the world nothing but ice and control. If I agree to this, I said slowly, if I marry you, things will be different this time. How? You don't get to claim me and then keep me at a distance. You don't get to call me your wife while treating me like a possession. You wanted me enough to beg for a second chance? Then you'll have to actually let me in. All the way in. No walls, no protection, no more cowardice disguised as nobility. His eyes darkened. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. I held his gaze. I'm asking for the truth. All of it. About who you are, what you do, what scares you. I'm asking to be your partner, not your trophy. I'm asking for the real Giovanni Caccini, not the mask everyone else gets to see. For a long moment, he was silent. Then slowly, he nodded. You'll have it. All of it. But Kiara... His grip on my neck tightened almost imperceptibly. Once you see all of me, you might wish you'd kept the wall between us. That's my choice to make. Then make it. His voice was rough. Marry me. Be my wife. Let me prove I can be the man you deserve instead of the coward who ran. I should have said no. Should have demanded time to process everything that had happened. Should have protected what was left of my heart from a man who'd already proven he could destroy me. But looking at Giovanni, feeling the warmth of his hands on my skin, seeing past his control to the desperation beneath, I found myself saying the word that would change everything. Yes. His eyes closed briefly, relief washing over his features. Then they opened again, dark and intense. And I saw hunger there that made my pulse race. This time will be different, he promised. This time, I won't let fear win. You'd better not. I pulled back enough to meet his gaze properly. Because I won't survive being rejected by you twice, Giovanni. This is your only chance to get it right. Then I'll get it right. He pressed his forehead to mine. Even if it kills me. The wedding was scheduled for 1 week later. No grand cathedral this time. No 500 guests bearing witness. Just a private ceremony in Giovanni's estate chapel with immediate family and a handful of trusted associates. My father insisted on attending despite the danger, bringing extra security that Giovanni's men coordinated with military precision. In the days leading up to the ceremony, I saw little of Giovanni. He was occupied with managing the Vitale threat, meeting with allies, fortifying defenses. But at night, I'd hear him pacing the hallway outside my rooms, his footsteps a restless rhythm that matched my own sleeplessness. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened my door to find him standing there, one hand raised as though he'd been about to knock. We stared at each other for a long moment, the silence heavy with unspoken words. "Can't sleep?" I asked, though the answer was obvious from the shadows under his eyes. "I keep thinking you'll change your mind." His voice was raw in a way I'd never heard before, that you'll wake up and realize marrying me is insane. It is insane. I stepped back, an invitation. But I said yes anyway. He hesitated on the threshold, and I saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Whatever walls he'd built around himself, they were fighting to stay intact even as he tried to tear them down for me. "Come in, Giovanni." I moved to the sitting area, curling up on the sofa. "If we're going to be married in 4 days, we should probably talk to each other like actual human beings." He entered slowly, closing the door behind him. Instead of sitting across from me, he surprised me by settling on the opposite end of the sofa, close enough that I could have reached out and touched him. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Everything." I pulled my knees up, wrapping my arms around them. "But let's start with why you really rejected me 3 months ago. And don't give me the line about protecting me. I want the truth." He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he leaned back, his head resting against the cushions, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "My father was a monster," he said finally. "I don't say that lightly. Luca Caccini was brutal, paranoid, and absolutely devoted to one person in his entire miserable life, my mother." I stayed quiet, sensing this was a story that couldn't be rushed. She was his weakness. Everyone knew it. And when I was 17, his enemies used that knowledge. Giovanni's jaw tightened. They took her, held her for 3 days while they negotiated terms with my father. He gave them everything they asked for: money, territory, intelligence on rival families, everything. And they killed her anyway. Slowly. Painfully. They sent him recordings of her final hours. Horror washed through me. Giovanni. My father never recovered. He continued as though I hadn't spoken. He became even more brutal, more paranoid. He died 5 years later, and I knew it was because losing her had destroyed him from the inside out. He'd been one of the most powerful men in the organization, brought to his knees by loving someone too much. Understanding began to dawn. So when you started to care about me, I saw my father's fate. He turned his head to look at me, and the pain in his eyes was stark and terrible. Every time I looked at you, every time you smiled at me during those months before the wedding, I felt myself falling. And I panicked, because caring about you meant giving my enemies a weapon they could use against me. It meant becoming vulnerable in a world where vulnerability gets you killed. So you pushed me away. I convinced myself it was the right thing to do. His hand clenched into a fist on his thigh. That you'd be safer if you weren't associated with me. That I'd be stronger without the distraction of worrying about you. I stood at that altar 3 months ago and told myself I was being noble. But you weren't. No. The word was heavy with regret. I was being a coward. I let fear make my decisions, and you paid the price for it. Your reputation, your standing in the families, your sense of self-worth. I destroyed all of it because I was too afraid to admit I'd fallen in love with you. My breath caught. He'd said the words so casually, as though they weren't world-altering. You loved me? Love. He corrected, his eyes holding mine. Present tense. I love you, Kiara. I've loved you since you were 20 years old and spilled wine on your dress at your father's birthday party. You laughed instead of crying, made a joke about it being a fashion statement, and kept serving guests like nothing had happened. In that moment, I saw your strength, your grace under pressure, your refusal to be embarrassed by small failures. And I was lost. Tears pricked my eyes. Then why didn't you? Because love terrifies me more than any enemy I've ever faced. He shifted closer, his hand reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. But these past 3 months showed me something worse than fear. Living without you, knowing I'd hurt you, watching you fade, seeing what my cowardice cost you. That was hell, Kiara. Real, tangible hell. So when the Vitale situation gave you an excuse, I took it. He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. Selfishly, desperately took it. I know that makes me a bastard. I know I'm using your fear and your father's desperation to get what I want. But I can't bring myself to regret it, because the alternative is losing you permanently. I leaned into his touch despite myself. You hurt me, Giovanni, more than anyone ever has. I know. I spent months thinking I was worthless, that something was wrong with me, that I was so fundamentally flawed you couldn't even look at me without disgust. Kiara, his voice broke, and now you expect me to just accept that it was all fear, that you loved me the whole time but were too much of a coward to act on it. I pulled back, anger and hurt warring in my chest. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? Tell me. He moved closer, his intensity almost overwhelming. Tell me exactly how it makes you feel. Yell at me. Hit me if you need to. I deserve all of it. I don't want to hit you. I stood, pacing to the window. The grounds were dark except for security lights, making the world beyond the glass feel distant and unreal. I want to understand how someone can claim to love me while doing something so deliberately cruel. Because I'm broken, Kiara. He stood too, but didn't approach. My father's paranoia, his brutality, his eventual destruction. It's in my blood. I grew up watching love become a weapon, watching devotion become a death sentence. When I felt myself caring about you, every instinct I'd developed screamed at me to run. So you did. So I did. He moved behind me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. And I've regretted it every day since. Not just because I hurt you, though that alone is enough to condemn me, but because I missed 3 months of being with you. 3 months of conversations like this. 3 months of learning who you really are beneath the perfect princess facade your family taught you to wear. I turned to face him, and found him closer than I'd expected. You don't know me at all, Giovanni. You fell in love with an idea. A girl in a wine-stained dress who laughed at herself. But I'm not that simple. I know. His hand came up, fingers tangling gently in my hair. That's what this week is for. Learning each other. Really learning. Not just surface observations. I want to know what keeps you awake at night. What makes you laugh until your stomach hurts. What you dream about when you let yourself imagine a future that's yours to choose. I dream about being more than someone's wife. The admission escaped before I could stop it. More than a pawn in family negotiations. I dream about mattering for who I am, not who I'm connected to. You matter to me." His voice was fierce. "Not because you're a Benedetto. Not because marrying you serves my interests. You matter because you're Chiara, stubborn, brave, strong enough to stand in this room and call me a coward to my face. You are a coward. I was." He pressed his forehead to mine. "But I'm trying not to be anymore. Give me a chance to prove it, Chiara. Let me spend the rest of my life showing you that my fear doesn't define us." I wanted to resist, wanted to hold on to my anger and hurt. But standing this close to Giovanni, feeling the tremor in his hands as they framed my face, seeing the vulnerability he was offering me, I felt something shift inside my chest. "If we do this," I said slowly, "if I really become your wife, I need a promise from you. Anything. No more running." I held his gaze. "When things get difficult, when you're scared, when your instincts tell you to push me away, you come to me instead. You talk to me. You let me help you carry whatever burden you're facing. Because I won't survive being abandoned by you again, Giovanni. This time has to be different, or it can't happen at all. It will be different." He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. "I swear to you, Chiara. I swear on my mother's memory, on my position, on my life. I won't run from you again. When I'm scared, you'll be the first to know. When I'm tempted to pull away, I'll pull you closer instead. I'll fight every instinct I have if it means keeping you. You'd better." I tilted my head back, an invitation I wasn't sure I should be offering, but couldn't seem to stop. "Because I'm done being the understanding, patient princess. If you hurt me again, I'll make you regret it in ways you can't even imagine." His smile was slow and devastating. I'd expect nothing less. Then he was kissing me, really kissing me for the first time, not the chaste kiss we'd shared once before the failed wedding, but something deep and claiming and absolutely electric. His hands tightened in my hair, angling my head for better access, and I melted against him without thought or hesitation. This was what I'd imagined during those months of preparation. This connection, this heat, this sense of being wanted, with an intensity that bordered on desperation. Giovanni kissed me like he was starving, and I was sustenance, like he'd been drowning and I was air. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed, jaw tight with restraint. 4 more days, he said roughly. 4 more days and you'll be my wife. Legally, officially mine. I'm not property, Giovanni. No. His eyes opened, dark and intense. You're so much more than that. You're my salvation, Chiara. The thing that might actually save me from becoming my father. The weight of that confession settled over us both. I saw the truth of it in his eyes. He wasn't just marrying me for protection or strategy. He was marrying me because he believed I could somehow redeem him, could pull him back from the darkness he'd been raised in. It was too much responsibility, too much pressure. But looking at him, I realized I wanted to try anyway. Then let me save you, I whispered. But you have to let me all the way in, Giovanni. No more walls, no more protection. If I'm going to be your wife, I need to see all of you, even the parts you think will scare me away. They will scare you. Maybe. I reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. But they won't make me leave. Not anymore. I've already survived your worst, Giovanni. I think I can handle the rest. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. 4 days, and then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. You'd better, I said again, but this time there was no anger in it, only hope. The wedding ceremony was nothing like I'd imagined as a little girl. No flowing white gown, no cathedral full of flowers, No fairy tale moment of walking down an endless aisle. Instead, I wore a simple cream silk dress, held a small bouquet of white roses, and stood in Giovanni's private chapel with less than 20 people watching. But when Giovanni took my hand and spoke his vows, looking into my eyes with an intensity that made my breath catch, I realized this was better than any fairy tale. This was real, raw, two broken people choosing each other despite every logical reason not to. I, Giovanni Caccini, take you, Chiara Benedetto, as my wife, he said, his voice steady but rough with emotion. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and never again let fear guide my actions where you're concerned. I promise to be the man you deserve, even when it terrifies me. When it was my turn, I spoke the words I'd been rehearsing in my head for days. I, Chiara Benedetto, take you, Giovanni Caccini, as my husband. I promise to stand beside you, challenge you when you need it, and remind you that strength and vulnerability can coexist. I promise to be your partner in all things, even when the path ahead is dark. The priest pronounced us husband and wife, and Giovanni kissed me like he was claiming something precious he'd almost lost. In that moment, surrounded by witnesses who understood exactly what this union meant, I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. Complicated, messy, and potentially disastrous, but right. The reception was held in Giovanni's formal dining room, an intimate dinner rather than a grand celebration. My father gave a short toast that was equal parts blessing and warning, reminding Giovanni that the Benedetto family protected their own. Giovanni's response was simple. So do the Caccinis, and Chiara is a Caccini now. Hearing my new name spoken aloud sent a thrill through me. Mrs. Giovanni Caccini. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, it felt like armor. After dinner, Giovanni led me to a different wing of the mansion, his private quarters. The master suite was even more impressive than the guest rooms I'd been occupying, with a massive bed that looked custom-made, a sitting area with a fireplace, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. This is our room now, Giovanni said, watching my face carefully. If you'd prefer separate spaces, I can arrange. No. I cut him off, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. We're married, Giovanni. Actually married this time. That means sharing a room, sharing a bed, sharing a life. Something heated in his eyes. Are you sure? We can take this slowly. I don't expect... What don't you expect? I moved closer, emboldened by the way his gaze tracked my movements. That I'd want to consummate our marriage? That I'd want my husband to actually touch me? His jaw clenched. Chiara, you've spent months convinced I'm too fragile, too innocent, too pure for your dark world. I stopped directly in front of him. But I'm stronger than you think, Giovanni, and I'm tired of being treated like I'll break. I don't think you'll break. His hands came up to frame my face. I think I will. Touching you, having you. It makes you real in a way that terrifies me, because now I have something to lose. You've always had something to lose. I leaned into his touch. You just didn't admit it until circumstances forced your hand. But we're here now, married, committed. So stop being afraid and touch your wife. The words were barely out of my mouth before he was kissing me, deeper and more demanding than before. His hands moved from my face to my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I felt his restraint cracking with every passing second. Tell me to stop, he murmured against my lips. Tell me you need more time, and I'll wait. I'll wait forever if that's what you need. I don't need time. I reached for the buttons of his shirt. I need you to stop treating me like I'm made of glass. He caught my wrists, his breathing harsh. If I start, I won't be gentle. I won't be the tender, careful lover you probably imagined. I'll claim you, Chiara. Completely. Are you ready for that? Looking into his storm-gray eyes, seeing the hunger and possession and desperate need there, I made my choice. Yes. What followed was exactly what he'd promised. Not gentle, not careful, but absolutely consuming. Giovanni made love to me like he was trying to imprint himself on my soul, like he was terrified I'd disappear if he didn't hold tight enough. And I matched him, taking as much as I gave, showing him that I was stronger than he believed. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets that cost more than furniture, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt something close to peace. "I love you," Giovanni said into the darkness. "I know I've said it before, but now that you're truly my wife, I need you to understand how completely I mean it. You're everything, Chiara. Everything I thought I couldn't have, shouldn't want, would only destroy if I claimed. But you're mine now, and I'll protect that with everything I am. I love you too." The words surprised me, but they were true. Somewhere between his rejection and his redemption, I'd fallen for this complicated, dangerous man, even though you're infuriating and emotionally stunted and have the worst timing in history. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest against my ear. I'll take that as a ringing endorsement. We drifted toward sleep, secure in our new reality. But around 3 a.m, I was awakened by the sound of Giovanni's phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. He answered it immediately, his voice sharp and alert, despite having been asleep moments before. "What?" A pause. "When?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'll be down in 5 minutes. Increase perimeter security and wake Dante." He ended the call and was out of bed before I could form a question. "Giovanni? What's wrong?" "The Vitales are moving faster than we anticipated." He was already pulling on clothes. "They've made contact with someone inside our organization, a traitor feeding them information." Ice spread through my veins. "Who?" "That's what we're about to find out." He leaned down, pressing a quick, hard kiss to my mouth. "Stay here. Lock the door after I leave and don't open it for anyone except me or Rosa. Understood? You can't just leave me here without explanation. Chiara." He gripped my shoulders. "I need you safe. That's my only priority right now. Promise me you'll stay here." I wanted to argue, wanted to demand he treat me like a partner rather than something to be protected. But the fear in his eyes, real, visceral fear, stopped me. "I promise. But Giovanni, be careful." "Always am." He kissed me again, then was gone. I locked the door as instructed and paced the room, unable to settle. Through the windows, I could see increased movement on the grounds. More guards, more lights, a level of activity that suggested serious threat. An hour passed. Then 2. I was considering breaking my promise and going to find out what was happening when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful, but wrong somehow. Not Giovanni's stride. The doorknob rattled. "Mrs. Caccini, Mr. Giovanni sent me to move you to a more secure location." I didn't recognize the voice, and Giovanni would have called to warn me if he was sending someone. My hand moved to my phone, but before I could dial, the door burst inward, lock shattered by brute force. 3 men entered, guns drawn. The lead one smiled coldly. "Mrs. Caccini, the Vitales send their regards." I'd been kidnapped before breakfast on my wedding night. The irony wasn't lost on me as the Vitales men forced me into an SUV, zip-tied my wrists, and drove me away from Giovanni's compound at speeds that suggested they weren't concerned about traffic laws. The man who'd broken down my door, Marco, I heard the others call him, kept his gun trained on me the entire ride. "Nothing personal, Signora, but you're worth more to us as leverage than as a corpse. Behave yourself and you'll survive this." I didn't respond. Couldn't respond past the terror lodging in my throat. Everything Giovanni had feared, everything he'd warned me about was happening. I'd become the weapon his enemies would use against him. We drove for perhaps 20 minutes before pulling into what looked like an abandoned warehouse district. The building they took me to was nondescript from the outside, but inside had clearly been prepared for my arrival. A chair bolted to the floor, industrial lighting, cameras positioned at multiple angles. They were going to record whatever they did to me. Send it to Giovanni as proof I was alive and in pain. Comfortable. Marco pushed me into the chair, securing my zip-tied wrists to the arms with additional restraints. I know it's not the luxury you're used to as Mrs. Cazzini, but you won't be here long, just until your husband agrees to our terms. He won't negotiate with you. I forced my voice to stay steady. Giovanni doesn't make deals with people who threaten his family. Is that what you are now? Family? Marco crouched in front of me, his smile unpleasant. Funny. We heard he rejected you at the altar 3 months ago. Humiliated you in front of everyone. Seems like a strange definition of family. That was before you became useful. He stood, pulling out his phone. See, we know exactly why Giovanni Caccini suddenly decided to marry you after all. Your father's support, strategic advantage, consolidation of power. You're not his wife, Signora. You're his asset. And now you're ours. The words stung because they echoed my own fears. Was I really Giovanni's wife, or just a convenient solution to multiple problems? He'd said he loved me, but how much of that was real versus strategic? Marco began filming. Giovanni Caccini, by now you've discovered your bride is missing. We have her, and she's unharmed, for now. But that will change if you don't meet our demands. He listed terms I barely processed, focused instead on staying calm, on not giving them the satisfaction of seeing me break. When he finished recording, Marco sent the video and turned back to me. Now we wait. Shouldn't take long. A man like Caccini, he'll move fast when his pretty young wife is in danger. But hours passed with no response. Dawn came, then morning, then afternoon. Marco grew increasingly agitated, making calls, snapping at his men, checking his phone compulsively. He's not responding, one of the others said nervously. Maybe he doesn't care as much as we thought. He cares. Marco's voice was sharp. He has to care. She's his wife. But doubt was creeping in. For me, for Marco, for everyone in that warehouse. What if Giovanni had decided I wasn't worth the cost? What if 3 months ago had been the truth and this marriage was just strategy? It was nearly dark when everything changed. One of Marco's men burst through the door, face pale with panic. They're here. Caccini's men. They've surrounded the building. Marco swore viciously. How many? All of them. It's not just a rescue team. It's an army. Through the walls, I could hear it. The sound of vehicles, of coordinated movement, of a force that vastly outnumbered the handful of men guarding me. Marco grabbed my arm, hauling me up, pressing his gun to my temple. Nobody moves, he shouted to his men. We still have her. That's our leverage. The door exploded inward, not picked or forced, but blown completely off its hinges. Men poured through, heavily armed, moving with military precision. And behind them, dressed all in black with a gun in each hand, and murder in his eyes, came Giovanni. He took in the scene instantly. Me restrained to the chair, Marco with a gun to my head, the other Vitale soldiers scrambling for their weapons. His gaze locked onto mine for just a moment, and I saw something in his expression that stole my breath. Not strategy, not calculation, pure, absolute rage at seeing me threatened. Let her go, Marco. Giovanni's voice was deadly calm. Let her go, and I'll consider making your death quick. I don't think so. Marco's hand shook against my temple. She's my ticket out of here. You back off or I blow her head off right now." "No, you won't." Giovanni advanced slowly, his guns never wavering. "Because the second you pull that trigger, there's nothing stopping me from tearing you apart with my bare hands. And trust me, Marco, you want the bullet more than you want what I'll do to you if you hurt my wife." "Stay back." Marco's desperation was palpable. "I'm warning you, Caccini." Everything happened simultaneously. Giovanni fired, the shot so precise it grazed Marco's gun hand, making him drop the weapon with a howl of pain. In the same motion, Giovanni was across the room, his fist connecting with Marco's jaw hard enough that I heard bone crack. Marco went down like a stone. Giovanni's men moved on the others with ruthless efficiency. Within seconds, every Vitale soldier was disarmed, restrained or unconscious. And through it all, Giovanni never looked away from me. He holstered his guns and crouched in front of my chair, his hands gentle as they worked to free the restraints. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "I swear to God, Chiara, if they laid one finger on you." "I'm fine." My voice broke on the words. "I'm fine, Giovanni. Just scared." The restraints fell away, and he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. His whole body was shaking, not with fear, but with barely controlled violence. "I thought I'd lost you. When I found your room destroyed, your phone left behind, no sign of you." His voice cracked. "I thought I'd failed you. Again." "The traitor?" I managed to ask, my face pressed against his chest. "Already dealt with." His tone suggested the fate hadn't been pleasant. It was Carlo, one of my own captains. He'd been feeding the Vitales information for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Taking you was supposed to be my breaking point, the thing that would force me to negotiate from weakness. But you didn't negotiate. No. He pulled back enough to cut my face, his eyes fierce. I hunted. I called in every favor, activated every asset, mobilized every man loyal to me. The Vitales thought taking you would make me vulnerable. Instead, it made me lethal. Marco groaned from where he lay on the floor, blood streaming from his broken nose. Giovanni's gaze shifted to him, something cold and terrible entering his expression. "Take him," he ordered his men, and the others. "Make an example of what happens to people who threaten the Caccini family." "Giovanni," I started, but he was already lifting me, carrying me out of that warehouse like I weighed nothing. Outside, a convoy of vehicles waited, more security than I'd ever seen. He settled me in the back of his SUV, then climbed in beside me, pulling me back into his arms. "Take us home," he ordered the driver, "and double security at the compound. I don't want a mouse getting through our perimeter without my knowing about it." As we drove away, I felt the adrenaline draining, leaving me exhausted and shaking. Giovanni's arms tightened around me, and I heard him murmuring something in Italian against my hair. A prayer, maybe. Or a promise. "You came for me," I said softly. "Of course I did." He tilted my face up to his. "You're my wife, Chiara. My wife. Not an asset, not a strategy, not a convenient alliance. Mine. The woman I love more than power or territory or my own life. Did you think I'd leave you to them?" Marco said. I stopped, unsure how to voice the fear. "What did he say?" "That you only married me for strategic reasons, that I was useful to you, nothing more." Giovanni's expression darkened. "I'm going to take special care with Marco's punishment." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Listen to me, Chiara. Listen carefully. I married you because I love you, because living without you was hell, because you're the only real, honest, good thing in my entire dark world. Yes, the timing was convenient. Yes, your father's support helps me, but I would have married you regardless. I would have protected you regardless. You are not a strategy. You're my everything. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I was so scared. Not just of them, but of what it meant. That you'd rejected me once and maybe never again. His voice was fierce. I will never again give you reason to doubt how much you mean to me. Every day for the rest of our lives, I'll prove that marrying you was the best decision I ever made. I'll show you that my love is real, not strategic, that you're cherished, not used. Promise? I promise. He kissed me then, gentle despite the violence still thrumming through him. And I keep my promises, Chiara. Always. Back at the compound, Giovanni carried me directly to our room despite my protests that I could walk. He set me on the bed and proceeded to check every inch of me for injuries, his hands careful but thorough. I'm fine, I insisted again. Really, they didn't hurt me. They scared you. They took you from our bed on our wedding night. They made you feel unsafe in the one place that should be sacred. His jaw was tight. That's unforgivable. But you found me. You saved me. I should have prevented it entirely. He sank onto the bed beside me. This is exactly what I feared, Chiara. This is why I tried to push you away. Because being with me paints a target on your back, makes you vulnerable to people who want to hurt me through you. And yet I'm still here. I took his hand. Still your wife. Still choosing you despite the danger. That should tell you something, Giovanni. It tells me you're braver than I deserve. No. I moved into his lap, straddling him, forcing him to meet my eyes. It tells me that love is worth the risk. That being with you, really being with you, is better than a safe, empty life without you. Today was terrifying. But you know what I realized while I was tied to that chair? What? That I trust you completely. Even when I was scared, even when hours passed without rescue, I knew you were coming. I knew you wouldn't leave me there. That trust, Giovanni, that's what makes this work. Not your power, not your resources, not your ability to protect me from every threat. Just the simple certainty that you'll always come for me. He pulled me close, burying his face in my neck. I will. Always. No matter what it costs. No matter what I have to destroy to get to you. I will always come for you. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, letting the reality of what had happened and what it meant sink in. I'd been tested and proven. Not fragile, not helpless, not the weakness Giovanni had feared. Strong enough to survive his world, strong enough to be his true partner. The Vitales won't stop, I said eventually. Today was just the beginning. I know. His arms tightened around me, but they made a mistake. They showed me exactly how far I'll go to protect you. And now every family, every rival, every enemy knows. Touching Chiara Caccini means facing the full wrath of my organization. They've turned you from a perceived weakness into the most dangerous woman in Chicago. How do you figure? He pulled back to look at me, and his smile was dangerous, because anyone who threatens you threatens the one thing I'll burn the world to protect. That makes you untouchable, Chiara. Sacred. Mine. The aftermath of my kidnapping rippled through the organization like shockwaves. Giovanni's response to the Vitales was swift and merciless. Within a week, their operations in Chicago were dismantled, their leaders either dead or fleeing the city. The message was clear. Threaten the Caccini family and face annihilation. But the real change was in Giovanni himself. He became simultaneously softer with me and harder with everyone else. He moved meetings to accommodate my schedule, included me in strategic discussions, asked my opinion on matters he'd never shared with anyone before. It was as though surviving the kidnapping had proven something to him. That I wasn't a fragile thing to be protected, but a partner to be trusted. 2 months after the wedding, I woke to find Giovanni already dressed, standing by the window of our bedroom with his phone pressed to his ear. His expression was troubled, and I heard enough of the conversation to know something was wrong. "How long?" he asked whoever was on the other end. "And you're certain?" A pause. "I see. Thank you for the information." He ended the call and stood there, his back rigid with tension. "Giovanni?" I sat up, pulling the sheet around me. "What's happened?" "That was Marco Benedetto." He turned to face me, and I saw something in his expression that made my breath catch. "Your cousin. He's been investigating something for me these past weeks." "Investigating what?" "The circumstances around the Vitale attack." Giovanni moved to sit on the edge of the bed. "How they knew exactly when and where to take you. How they got through our security so easily. How they knew the layout of our compound well enough to strike at the precise moment I was occupied elsewhere." Ice spread through my veins. "Another traitor?" "Not exactly." His jaw tightened. "Marco found evidence that the attack was facilitated by someone with intimate knowledge of both Benedetto and Caccini operations. Someone who benefited from creating chaos between our families. Someone who wanted me destabilized, questioned, potentially removed from power." "Who?" "Antonio Russo." The name hit like a physical blow. "He's been working with a faction within the Cosa Nostra that believes I'm becoming too powerful, too unpredictable. They see my marriage to you as a sign of weakness, evidence that I'm allowing personal feelings to cloud my judgment." I thought of Antonio, one of Giovanni's oldest allies, someone who'd been at our wedding. But why? What does he gain? "My position." Giovanni's voice was flat. "If I fall, Antonio is positioned to take control of the Chicago operations. He's been building support quietly for months, using my rejection of you 3 months ago as proof that I'm unstable. When I changed course and married you after all, it reinforced his narrative, that I make impulsive decisions based on emotion rather than strategy. So he arranged for the Vitales to take me. Not directly. He simply ensured they had the information and opportunity they needed. He wanted me to either fail to rescue you, proving I was weak, or to overreact to your kidnapping, proving I was emotionally compromised." Giovanni's hand clenched into a fist. Either outcome would have given him the ammunition he needed to challenge my leadership. The complexity of the betrayal was staggering. "What are you going to do?" "What I have to do." He met my eyes. "Antonio Russo will be dealt with, permanently, along with anyone else who supported his coup attempt. By tomorrow night, every traitor in my organization will be eliminated." The cold certainty in his voice reminded me exactly who I'd married. Not just a man, but a mafia boss. Someone capable of ordering deaths with the same ease most people ordered dinner. "Giovanni, don't ask me to show mercy, Chiara." His voice was hard. "These men tried to have you killed. They put you in danger to serve their own ambitions. I won't allow that to go unpunished." "I'm not asking for mercy." I moved closer, taking his face in my hands. "I'm asking you to be smart about this. If you eliminate everyone Antonio's been talking to, you'll create a power vacuum. Other families will see it as weakness, as paranoia. You'll be proving his point about being compromised by emotion." He tried to pull away, but I held firm. "Listen to me. Yes, Antonio needs to be dealt with. Yes, the traitors need to face consequences. But you need to do it strategically, not out of rage. Show the families that you're in control, that you're making calculated decisions, that loving me doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger." "How?" The question was rough. How do I punish the people who threatened my wife without looking emotional? By making it about business, not revenge. I released him, my mind already working through possibilities. Antonio wanted your position because he thinks you're unstable. So prove him wrong. Present evidence of his betrayal to the Council of Families. Let them see that he was willing to ally with the Vitales, our enemies, for personal gain. That's not just treason against you. It's treason against the Cosa Nostra itself. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Make it about loyalty to the organization, not about you protecting me. Exactly. I moved to our closet, pulling out clothes. Call a meeting of all the major families. Present your evidence. Let them vote on Antonio's fate. That way, his death becomes a collective decision, not your emotional reaction. And anyone else who supported him will be too afraid to show their hand. Giovanni watched me dress, something like awe in his expression. When did you become a strategist? I've always been one. I met his gaze in the mirror. You just weren't paying attention. Being decorative doesn't mean being stupid, Giovanni. Your world isn't that different from the one I was raised in. It's all about appearances, alliances, and knowing when to strike. I'm sorry. The apology was quiet but sincere. For ever thinking you were just a pretty face. For not seeing your intelligence, your strength, your ability to match me in ways that matter. You're seeing it now. I turned to face him. That's what counts. Now make the calls, set up the meeting, and let's end this threat together. The council meeting was held 2 days later in neutral territory, a private estate that had been used for Cosa Nostra business for generations. Every major family was represented, their leaders sitting around a massive table that had witnessed countless negotiations, betrayals, and executions. I sat beside Giovanni, the only woman in the room. Some of the older men had objected to my presence, but Giovanni had been firm. Chiara is my wife and my partner. She has as much right to be here as any of you. Anyone who disagrees can leave now. No one left. Antonio Russo sat across from us, his expression carefully neutral. But I saw the calculation in his eyes, the way he assessed every face around the table, looking for allies. Giovanni stood, commanding immediate attention. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I've called this meeting to address a matter of treason within our organization. Murmurs around the table. Antonio's expression didn't change. 2 months ago, my wife was kidnapped by the Vitales. Giovanni's voice was controlled, businesslike. At the time, we believed it was simply an opportunistic attack. But recent investigation has revealed something more disturbing. The attack was facilitated by one of our own. He nodded to Marco Benedetto, who stood and distributed folders to everyone present. Inside, you'll find documented evidence of communications between Antonio Russo and representatives of the Vitale family. Dates, times, content of conversations. You'll see that Russo provided detailed information about Caccini's security protocols, building layouts, and my schedule on the night of my wife's kidnapping. Antonio finally reacted, his face paling. That evidence is fabricated. Is it? Giovanni cut him off coldly. Because we also have testimony from 3 of your associates who were present during planning meetings. Men who were smart enough to come forward when they realized the magnitude of what you were planning. Around the table, men were reading the documents with increasingly grave expressions. The evidence was damning. Messages, recorded conversations, financial transactions. Everything needed to prove Antonio's guilt beyond doubt. But the real question, Giovanni continued, isn't just about what Antonio did to me personally. It's about what his actions represent. He allied with our enemies. He gave them intelligence that could have been used against all of us. He prioritized his personal ambition over the safety of the Cosa Nostra itself. That's not... Antonio started. You wanted my position, Giovanni interrupted, his voice like ice. You convinced yourself I was weak because I fell in love with my wife. You saw emotion as vulnerability and decided to exploit it. But here's what you failed to understand, Antonio. Loving Chiara doesn't make me weak. It makes me absolutely ruthless about protecting what's mine. And what's mine includes this organization, these families, every man at this table. He leaned forward, hands braced on the table. Antonio Russo betrayed us all for personal gain. The question now is, what do we do about it? The vote was unanimous. Antonio's fate was sealed not by Giovanni's rage, but by the collective judgment of the families he'd betrayed. He was stripped of his position, his assets seized, and sentenced to death, executed not as revenge for threatening me, but as punishment for treason against the organization. I watched Giovanni throughout the proceedings, seeing how he maintained perfect control, how he let the evidence speak for itself, how he made it about principle rather than emotion. This was the man he truly was, capable of both profound love and absolute ruthlessness, able to separate personal feelings from strategic necessity. When it was over and we returned to the compound, Giovanni pulled me into his study. You were right, about all of it. If I'd just eliminated Antonio out of rage, it would have created exactly the chaos he wanted. But doing it this way, making it about loyalty to the organization, everyone saw that I'm still in control. We're in control, I corrected. This is a partnership, remember? A partnership. He repeated the word like he was tasting it. I like that. He pulled me close, his hands settling on my waist. I love you, Chiara Caccini. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that loving you doesn't make me weak. It makes me unstoppable. I love you too. I reached up to cup his face. Even though you're complicated and dangerous and sometimes infuriatingly stubborn. Only sometimes. Don't push your luck. But I was smiling as I said it. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When we finally broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to mine. I have something for you. What? He moved to his desk and retrieved a folder, handing it to me. Inside were documents, property deeds, business licenses, bank account information. I've been working on this for weeks. It's a foundation in your name, funded by a percentage of my legitimate businesses. You'll have full control over its operations and direction. I stared at the papers, overwhelmed. Giovanni, this is your independence. He smiled softly. You told me once that you dreamed about being more than someone's wife, about mattering for who you are, not who you're connected to. This is your chance. Build something that's entirely yours. Make a difference in ways that have nothing to do with me or the Cosa Nostra. Be Chiara Caccini, not just Mrs. Giovanni Caccini. Tears pricked my eyes. You're serious. Completely. I want you happy, Chiara. I want you fulfilled. And if that means giving you the resources to build your own empire, separate from mine, then that's what I'll do. I set the folder down and moved into his arms. Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me. How could I not? He held me close. You're the most remarkable woman I've ever met. Smart, strong, brave enough to stand up to me when I need it. I'd be a fool not to recognize that. You were a fool, I reminded him, 3 months ago. And you married me anyway. He pulled back to look at me. Why? Really? Why did you give me a second chance after everything I put you through? Because I saw past the fear to the man beneath. I traced the line of his jaw. Because I recognized that you were broken in the same ways I was broken. Because loving you felt inevitable, even when it shouldn't have. Because... I paused, smiling. Because I'm apparently a glutton for punishment. He laughed, the sound free and genuine. Lucky for me. Lucky for both of us. I kissed him softly. We get to build this life together, on our terms, creating something real out of what started as duty and strategy. Something real, he echoed. I like that too. We stood there in his study, wrapped in each other, looking out at the grounds as the sun set. This was our life now, complicated, dangerous, built on foundations that weren't traditional or easy. But it was ours, and that made it perfect. 3 years later, I stood in the nursery of our compound, rocking our daughter to sleep. Lucia was 6 months old, with Giovanni's dark hair and my green eyes, and she'd wrapped both of us completely around her tiny fingers. Giovanni appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with that expression he reserved only for me and Lucia. Unguarded, soft, completely in love. "She asleep?" he whispered. Finally. I placed Lucia gently in her crib, watching her settle with a soft sigh. "She fought it tonight. She gets that stubborn streak from you." He moved behind me, arms coming around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder as we both watched our daughter sleep. "From me? You're the most stubborn person I know." "Was," he corrected. "Was the most stubborn. You've mellowed me." I laughed softly. "Is that what we're calling it?" "What would you call it? Redemption." I turned in his arms to face him. "You became the man you were always meant to be. It just took meeting the right person to show you the way." "No." He cupped my face, his eyes intense even in the dim nursery lighting. "It took meeting you. Specifically you. No one else could have done what you did. Stood up to me, challenged me, loved me even when I didn't deserve it. You saved me, Kiara. From my father's legacy, from my own fear, from a life where power was the only thing that mattered. We saved each other." I pressed my palm over his heart. "You showed me I could be strong. That being cherished and being powerful weren't mutually exclusive. That love could be fierce and protective without being suffocating. Best decision I ever made," he murmured, "was finally getting out of my own way and marrying you." "Second best decision," I corrected with a smile. "First best was letting me be your partner rather than just your wife. Partners." He kissed me softly. "In everything. Forever." As we left the nursery, his hand firmly in mine, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The rejection, the humiliation, the fear and danger and impossible choices. None of it had been easy. None of it had been what I'd imagined when I was a girl dreaming of her wedding day. But looking at the life we'd built, the foundation I ran that helped women escape abusive situations, the security we'd created for our daughter, the partnership we'd forged from ashes and mistakes, I wouldn't change any of it, because Giovanni Caccini had claimed me as his wife. And I had claimed him right back, teaching him that love wasn't weakness, but the strongest force in the world. We were proof that even the most broken people could find redemption in each other's arms.